Hey, it's Buffalo. We're ranking albums again. This time it's Oneohtrix Point Never. Let's just get into it, shall we? Okay, so at the bottom it's Zones Without People. And my favorite track on this album is Format and Journey North. You know, I quite like some of the sound play on this thing, but the writing is just a little bit unfulfilling. Quite a few of these tracks. A lot of these tracks just kind of fizzle out for me, you know? But still, some pretty awesome, you know, synth work and shit, as usual. This is still a really good album. I'll probably give it like a 7. But yeah, I'll probably put it at the bottom. Next up is Age of. My favorite track on this album is probably the final song, Last Known Image of a Song. Fucking great closer. But yeah, I mean, this thing was just a little bit inconsistent. The second half of the album was just fucking wonderful. I love the second half. First half had a few missteps. I've actually come around quite a bit to The Station, though. That's a pretty interesting, weird, idiosyncratic song. I kind of dig that shit. But yeah, there are so many Asian guitars. Yeah, like not a single harpsichord anywhere on this album. It's just pure, just sitars, zithers, fucking, what other Asian, I'm trying to think of some other fucking, yeah, that wasn't really a career highlight for me. But yeah, whatever. Still, I like the sound quite a bit, actually. Of all the 7 out of 10s I've given this year, this is actually probably the highest 7. This is probably the closest to an 8 out of all the 7s I've given so far this year. But yeah, in the grand scheme of his catalog, though, I think it's definitely one of his weakest. Next up, it's R+7. My favorite track on this album is Americans. This is definitely one of the brighter albums in his catalog. There are moments that are quite fricative and quite frenetic. There are other moments that are more spacious, atmospheric, you know. I think there are some pretty stunning moments on this thing, sure. It's a great album. I love this thing. I just think it falls short mainly in its just structure, in its pace. But in regards to just the general sound of this album, it's one of the most inspiring and hopeful things he's come out with, so I like it in that regard. And yeah, Americans is honestly a fucking top 5 song. I love that track. Really hypnotic melodies as well, and yeah, some of the sound play on this album is just, as usual, fucking beautiful. Next up I have Garden of Delete. My favorite track on this album is I Bite Through It. A pretty intimidating and provocative release for the guy. Really a bombastic shit on this album. The first half particularly has a really weird, unorthodox structure to it that I really enjoy, and the songs like Mutant Standard and Ezra have a really just grimy, just eerie sense of like paranoia to them that I really find quite unnerving. I just think it falls short. I think a few cuts just feel a bit inessential overall, like Child of Rage, for example. I don't really think that song adds too much, personally, for me, but you know, still, it's a great album. Next up I have Betrayed in the Octagon. My favorite track on this album is Woe is the Transgression 2. This album, I think, uses empty space geniusly. It has a really phenomenal pace to it. I think it knows exactly when to do what. Everything feels really purposeful to me on this album. I think it uses its more, I guess, spacious and sparse moments, and the way it contrasts with some of the more, I guess, harrowing sound play that kind of pops in at points on some of these tracks, like on some of the longer tracks. The way certain textures just kind of pierce through amidst the just eerie landscape of nothingness on some of these cuts. It just creates for an incredibly hauntingly evil atmosphere that I think is just really well, you know, executed. So this album, it always leaves a pretty strong impression on me when it's done. I think it's pretty awesome. So yeah, great ambient release for Daniel right here. Yeah,
It's pretty good.
Next up, it's Returnal. My favorite track on this album is the first song, Neil Admirari. This is one of the most brutal fucking songs. Dude, this album kicks off like. This album just doesn't let up from the get. Dude, this first track is fucking lethal. It sounds like, how does this track sound? It sounds like you're just suddenly being jolted at light speed down to hell, and it's just like fucking relentless. Like it sounds like 12 people are screaming in your ear whilst you're just light speed fucking jolted down to the most hellish abyss at the bottom of everything, fucking blasting through anything that is in your way, and it's just like, what the fuck. And the way this track transitions into track 2, which is just such a warm embrace after the harsh brutality of that first track, it sounds like you just suddenly just get lifted up into like heaven, and it's like, whoa, this is crazy. It's a real wild ride. There are so many fucking awesome little nuances and shit throughout this track list, and I think it makes for a really memorable experience. Definitely one of the more inaccessible albums in his catalog, but I think there are some serious moments of genius in this thing, and yeah, I would put it up in the yeah. Alright, next up I have Russian Mind. My favorite track on this album is Physical Memory, which might be my favorite Oneohtrix Point Never song. I have a very vivid memory of listening to this track on the train and feeling like anything was possible. It was a fucking crazy feel. I was like on the train just with my eyes shut, just completely lost in the insanely vivid world of the track Physical Memory. And the use of repetition on this particular song is absolutely insane. I just remember thinking like, how do I don't know how to fucking put it. I was listening to that song and I just felt like everything was in my grasp. It was fucking insane. Like, I felt so unbelievably excited to just be a person. It was like a really life-affirming moment. I wanted to just work on everything and just, I was just super productive that whole day, and I just felt so just motivated. And I was just like, yeah, it just really put me in this insane headspace that I fucking could not have been happier to have experienced. And there are some other really awesome moments too. The frenetic nature of the title track is always great. The warm embrace of the final two tracks on this album is really great. Yeah, I love this thing to death. I think it's fucking excellent. And yeah, and Physical Memory is just such a fucking wonderful song. My favorite album of his though is of course Replica. Oh my god, Replica is a masterpiece. This album is fucking ridiculous. This album is spellbinding. Every sound on this album has a character to me, and it all coalesces to create something that is one of the most evocative things I've ever listened to. This thing is really, really mesmerizing. Like, fuck me. Like, I feel like there is some really malformed, like, fucked human life buried beneath the vivid samples and textures that just populate this incredibly dense and mesmerizing listen. And that just gives it this weirdly just cathartic and just harrowing feel that I can't describe. And I like that. Pretty sounded fucking weird. The way certain voices can chirp through on some of these tracks, like Child Soldier and Nassau, in just a really chilling way, and the way certain tracks shift in tone to like an up, where you have these really bombastic drums and these just lush piano chords, and the way strings just come into complete it, and the piano that pops in too. It's all, everything feels like it has a voice. This album really feels like it has emotion. It feels like it really has like a pulse. Nothing about it feels synthetic, even though it's entirely electronic. Yeah, I can't fucking, yeah, it's really hard for me to put into words how this album makes me feel, but it's just such an unbelievably stunning listen. I can't fucking, I can't fathom this fucking thing. I think it's so incredible. Yeah, it's just the best, man. I will never forget, like, the walk I went on. I think it was like my second or third listen to this album, and I just could not believe it. Like, how I was, it was like, this is fucking unnatural. Like, how unbelievably enveloped and immersed I was in this album. It was just like, this is insane. This is, yeah, it was, I don't know, it was crazy. But yeah, that's a ranking. There you go, worst to best, Oneohtrix Point Never albums. Yeah, cool. Bye.